Welcome to my channel. Subscribe, listen, and enjoy my stories every day. The pine-scented air is cool as it brushes against my skin, the crispness of the forest night a welcome contrast to the warmth of the campfire crackling before me. We're nestled deep in the woods, far from the hum of civilization, surrounded by nothing but towering trees and the symphony of nocturnal creatures. This is supposed to be a getaway, a chance to reconnect with nature and with each other. But the tension in the air is palpable, thick enough that it's almost stifling. I sit in one of those foldable camping chairs, the kind you buy last minute because you realize roughing it out here doesn't mean sacrificing all creature comforts. My wife, Jessica, is sitting across from me, her laughter floating in the air like a melody, beautiful but with an edge that cuts deep. She's always had a laugh that could fill a room, but tonight, it's different. It feels forced, like she's trying too hard to be happy, or maybe to make me believe she's happy. "Hey, Jake," Greg calls from beside me, holding out a steaming mug. "Tea. It'll warm you up." I take the cup, nodding my thanks as I peer into the amber liquid. It smells of chamomile, with a hint of something sweet. I'm not much of a tea person, but it's cold, and the fire isn't enough to keep the chill completely at bay. I take a sip, letting the warmth spread through me, and glance around at the others. There's Greg, always the life of the party, the one who organizes these kinds of trips. His fiancée, Amanda, is curled up next to him, leaning into his shoulder with a contented smile. The firelight flickers across her face, casting shadows that dance with the flames. Then there's Tom, sitting quietly at the edge of the circle, staring into the fire like it holds the secrets to the universe. And then there's Jessica, my wife of 7 years. Her blonde hair catches the light as she tosses it over her shoulder, laughing at something Greg said, her blue eyes sparkling in the firelight. There was a time when that laugh could make my heart skip a beat. Now, it only makes me uneasy. "You look tired, babe," Jessica says, her voice laced with concern. "Long day." "Yeah, maybe," I reply, taking another sip of the tea. "Or maybe you guys put something in this tea to knock me out early." The group laughs, and I join in, but there's a part of me that's not entirely joking. I can't shake the feeling that something is off, that under the surface of this seemingly perfect night, there's something lurking. Jessica's eyes meet mine across the fire, and for a moment, I think I see something in them. A flicker of guilt, perhaps? Or maybe it's just my tired mind playing tricks on me. I rub my eyes, feeling a sudden wave of exhaustion wash over me. It's been a long day, and the warmth of the tea is making me drowsy. "Seriously, Jake, you look like you're about to pass out," Greg says, slapping my shoulder. "Maybe you should turn in early. We'll hold down the fort." "Yeah, maybe I will," I mutter, stifling a yawn. I can barely keep my eyes open now, the exhaustion pulling at me with a force that feels unnatural. "Don't have too much fun without me." "Wouldn't dream of it," Jessica says with a smile, but there's something in her tone that makes my skin prickle. I push myself out of the chair, swaying slightly as the world tilts around me. The others are watching me with those smiles still plastered on their faces, and I wonder if I'm imagining the way their eyes seem to gleam with something darker than the firelight. "Good night," I mumble, stumbling towards the tent. I hear their murmured goodnights behind me, their voices blending into the night as I unzip the tent flap and crawl inside. As soon as I'm inside, I collapse onto the sleeping bag, my mind heavy with sleep. I can hear the distant hum of their conversation outside, their laughter carrying through the cool night air. I close my eyes, letting the exhaustion take over, and I slip into darkness almost immediately. I wake up suddenly, my heart pounding in my chest. The tent is dark, the only light coming from the faint glow of the dying campfire outside. I can hear the crickets chirping, their rhythmic song the only sound in the otherwise silent night. I'm disoriented, my mind struggling to piece together where I am and why I woke up. Then I hear it, a soft, muffled sound coming from outside the tent. At first, I think it's just the wind rustling the leaves, but as I strain to listen, I realize it's something else. Something human. I sit up slowly, my senses on high alert. The exhaustion from earlier is gone, replaced by a growing sense of unease. I reach for the tent flap, pausing for a moment before I unzip it as quietly as possible. The cool night air rushes in, and I peer out into the darkness. The campfire has burned down to embers, casting a faint orange glow over the campsite. The chairs are empty, and the tent flaps of the others are all closed. But the sounds are still there, coming from just beyond the light of the fire. I slip out of the tent, my movements slow and cautious, and creep towards the source of the noise. My heart is pounding in my ears, my breath coming in shallow gasps as I move closer. The sound grows louder, more distinct, a mix of muffled voices and something else. A sound that sends a chill down my spine. I step around the side of Greg and Amanda's tent, and that's when I see them. Jessica is on her knees, her back arched, her hair cascading down her bare back. She's naked, completely exposed, and she's straddling Greg, who is lying beneath her, his face buried between her legs. The sight hits me like a punch to the gut, knocking the breath from my lungs. My world shatters in that moment. Everything slows down, and I feel like I'm watching a scene from someone else's life. This can't be happening. This isn't real. But it is. Jessica moans softly, her hips moving in a rhythm that's sickeningly familiar. Greg's hands are gripping her thighs, his fingers digging into her flesh as he pulls her down onto his face. And the worst part? She's whispering his name, over and over, like a prayer. My stomach churns, and I feel bile rise in my throat. I want to scream, to tear them apart, to do something, but I'm frozen, paralyzed by the shock and betrayal coursing through me. And then, in a twisted moment of clarity, I realize what's happened. The tea. They drugged me. They planned this. The realization cuts through me like a knife, and the pain is almost unbearable. This wasn't a mistake or a moment of weakness. This was deliberate. This was planned. I back away slowly, my legs shaking beneath me, and retreat to my tent. I crawl inside, my mind racing, my heart shattered into a million pieces. I lie there in the darkness, the image of Jessica and Greg burned into my mind, and I make a decision. They think they've won, that they've humiliated me and gotten away with it. But they're wrong. I'm not going to let this slide. I'm not going to be the victim. I'm going to make them pay. And by the time I'm done, their lives will be as ruined as mine. Morning comes too soon, and with it, the light of day that feels like it's mocking the darkness of the night before. I lie in the tent, staring at the fabric ceiling, trying to make sense of the chaos in my mind. My body feels heavy, like I'm being pressed down by the weight of betrayal. Jessica is still asleep beside me, her breathing slow and even. It's a sickeningly peaceful sound, given what she's done. Given what I've seen. I know I have to get up, to face them all, but the thought of pretending everything is normal makes me nauseous. The memory of last night is seared into my brain, every detail sharp and clear. I can't let them see that I know. Not yet. I need time to figure out my next move, to plan my revenge. Jake. Jessica's voice pulls me from my thoughts. I can feel her stirring beside me, and I quickly force a neutral expression onto my face before I turn to look at her. Morning, I say, my voice sounding flat even to my own ears. She smiles, a little too brightly, and leans in to kiss me. I let her, but the touch of her lips on mine makes my skin crawl. I pull back as soon as I can, rolling out of the sleeping bag and away from her. Sleep well, she asks, stretching her arms above her head, her body moving with a casual grace that now feels like a slap in the face. Yeah, I lie, avoiding her gaze as I start to pull on my clothes. You. Like a baby, she replies, and I can hear the smile in her voice. It's so peaceful out here. Peaceful. The word makes my hands clench into fists. I manage to keep my tone even as I say, yeah, it is. She's oblivious to the storm brewing inside me, and that ignorance makes my anger burn hotter. But I keep it buried, focusing instead on getting through this day without letting on that I know. We should get breakfast going, I say, trying to sound casual. The others will be up soon. Good idea, she agrees, slipping into her own clothes. She moves with a fluidity that makes my stomach churn, like she's completely at ease, like she's not hiding the darkest of secrets. I step outside, the morning sun hitting me like a slap, and the fresh air does little to clear the fog in my mind. The campsite is quiet, the remnants of last night's fire still smoldering in the pit. I take a deep breath, forcing myself to focus. I have to get through this day, but more than that, I need to find a way to start my plan. As I set about gathering the supplies for breakfast, I hear movement from the other tents. Greg and Amanda are the first to emerge, looking annoyingly well-rested. Greg gives me a wide grin, his eyes crinkling at the corners. Morning, Jake. Ready for another day in paradise? His voice is too cheerful, too damn smug. I swallow the bile that rises in my throat and force a smile. Yeah, couldn't ask for better weather. Amanda waves at me as she ties her hair back into a messy bun. She's always been friendly, but right now, every gesture, every smile, feels like a mockery. Where's Tom? I ask, glancing around for the last member of our group. He's the quiet one, always a bit of a loner, but dependable. Probably still asleep, Greg says, shrugging. He'll show up when he smells the coffee. I nod, keeping my face neutral as Jessica joins us, her usual warmth and charm on full display. She exchanges a quick, knowing glance with Greg that makes my blood boil, but I don't let it show. As we start cooking breakfast, the sizzle of bacon and the smell of brewing coffee fill the air. The normalcy of it all is maddening, like we're all actors in a play where I'm the only one who knows the script has changed. Morning, everyone, Tom's voice drifts over from his tent as he steps out, rubbing his eyes. He looks as tired as I feel, his usually sharp features softened by the morning light. Morning, we all murmur in unison, and for a moment, everything feels almost normal. Almost. As we sit around eating, the conversation flows easily. They talk about the hike planned for later, about the beautiful scenery, about everything except the elephant in the room that only I can see. I nod and smile, playing along, but my mind is racing, trying to figure out how to start unraveling their lives. After breakfast, we split up to take care of the camp chores. Greg and Amanda head off to gather more firewood, leaving me alone with Jessica and Tom. The three of us are supposed to be cleaning up, but my mind is elsewhere. Jake, can you pass me the garbage bags? Jessica asks, breaking into my thoughts. Her voice is sweet, innocent, like she hasn't a care in the world. I hand her the bags without a word, keeping my eyes on the ground. I can feel Tom's gaze on me, like he's sensing something is off, but I don't look up. I can't let anyone see the anger simmering just beneath the surface. As Jessica moves away to pick up trash, Tom steps closer to me, lowering his voice. You alright, man? You seem distracted. I force a laugh, shaking my head. Just tired. Didn't sleep well. Tom nods, but he doesn't look convinced. If you need to talk, you know I'm here. Thanks, I say, managing a smile. But I'm fine, really. He watches me for another moment, then seems to accept my answer and walks away to help Jessica. I exhale slowly, relieved that I've dodged that bullet. But it's a reminder that I have to be careful. I can't let my emotions slip, not until I've figured out how to take them all down. The rest of the morning passes in a blur. We pack up camp, preparing for the hike Greg has been raving about for weeks. He's always been the outdoorsy type, dragging us on these trips every chance he gets. Normally, I'd be looking forward to the challenge, but today, the thought of spending hours on a trail with these people makes my skin crawl. As we set out, the path winding through dense trees and rocky terrain. I hang back, letting the others lead. I need space to think, to figure out my next move. The trail is steep in places, forcing us to concentrate on our footing, which gives me the perfect excuse to stay silent. After about an hour, we reach a clearing with a breathtaking view of the valley below. The sun is high in the sky, casting a golden light over the landscape. It's beautiful, but I can't appreciate it. Not with the bitterness in my chest. "This is amazing," Jessica breathes, her eyes wide with wonder. She turns to me, smiling, and I force myself to return it. "Yeah," I say, my voice hollow. "It is." We take a break, sitting on the rocks and drinking water. The others chat about nothing in particular, their voices blending with the rustling leaves and distant bird calls. I sit apart, pretending to admire the view, but my mind is miles away. That's when I hear footsteps coming up the trail behind us. I turn, half expecting to see another hiker, but instead, I'm met with a familiar face, two, actually. Matt and Sarah, old friends from college who I haven't seen in years, are making their way up the trail, their faces lighting up as they spot us. "Jake? Jessica? No way!" Matt exclaims, breaking into a wide grin. He's a tall guy, athletic, with an easygoing demeanor that's always made him likable. Sarah, his wife, is right behind him, her long hair pulled back in a ponytail, her face flushed from the hike. "What are the odds?" Sarah says, laughing as she approaches us. "We thought we were the only ones crazy enough to hike this trail today." Jessica jumps up, rushing over to greet them. "This is such a coincidence. It's been forever." I stay where I am, forcing a smile as they exchange hugs and excited greetings. Matt and Sarah were always fun to be around, but their sudden appearance now feels like an intrusion on my carefully controlled chaos. "How've you been?" Matt asks, turning to me with a broad smile. "Good," I reply, shaking his hand. "It's great to see you guys. Are you camping out here too?" Sarah asks, glancing around at the group. "Yeah," Jessica answers before I can. "We're here with some friends for the weekend." "Well, what a small world," Matt says, shaking his head in disbelief. "Mind if we join you for a bit?" "Of course not," Greg says, jumping in. He's always eager to expand the group, the more the merrier in his eyes. As they all catch up, I watch from the sidelines, my mind racing. Matt and Sarah's arrival is unexpected, but it could be an opportunity. They're outsiders, unconnected to the twisted web I'm trapped in. If I play this right, they could be the key to unraveling everything. As the day wears on and we continue our hike, I keep my distance, observing the group dynamics with a new perspective. Matt and Sarah blend in easily, their cheerful energy a stark contrast to the undercurrent of tension that only I seem to feel. But I'm not just watching them. I'm watching Jessica, Greg, and the others, looking for cracks in their facades, for anything that might give away their secrets. I'm watching for the moment when I can start to turn the tables. Because now, it's not just about revenge. It's about survival. And I'm determined to come out on top, no matter what it takes. The sun is beginning to dip toward the horizon as we finally make our way back to camp, our boots crunching over fallen leaves and twigs. The hike has left me physically exhausted, but my mind is sharper than it's been in days. Matt and Sarah's unexpected arrival has given me an idea, one that could turn this entire situation on its head. As we approach the campsite, I deliberately hang back, letting the others move ahead while I fall into step beside Matt. "You guys picked a great weekend for this," he says, wiping sweat from his brow. "It's been way too long since we've done something like this." "Yeah, perfect timing," I reply, keeping my tone casual. "How have you and Sarah been? We haven't seen you in forever." Matt grins, shrugging as he adjusts his backpack. "We've been good. Busy with work, you know how it is." But when Sarah mentioned wanting to go camping, I thought, why not? Get away from the city for a while. It's good to see you guys, I say, meaning it. I've missed hanging out. Same here, man. We should do it more often, Matt agrees. He glances over at Sarah, who's walking ahead with Jessica, their laughter ringing through the trees. It's great to see Sarah relaxing. She's been so stressed lately. I nod, though my mind is racing. Matt and Sarah have always been the kind of people who see the best in everyone, who believe in the goodness of the world. They're exactly the kind of people I can use to my advantage. I'm glad you two showed up, I say, lowering my voice as I lean in closer to Matt. Actually, I could use your help with something. Sure, anything, Matt says, his brow furrowing slightly. What's up? I take a deep breath, choosing my words carefully. I haven't told the others yet, but I've been having some doubts about this trip. About everyone here. Matt's expression turns serious, concern etched on his face. What do you mean? It's hard to explain, I say, rubbing the back of my neck as if I'm struggling to find the right words. I've just noticed some strange behavior. Some things that don't add up. Matt stops walking, turning to face me fully. Jake, are you okay? What kind of strange behavior? I meet his gaze, letting a hint of vulnerability show. I think something's going on between Jessica and Greg. I don't have concrete proof, but I don't know, it's just a feeling I can't shake. Matt's eyes widen, and he glances back toward the camp, where the others are starting to unpack. Are you serious? Do you want to confront them about it? Not yet, I say quickly, shaking my head. I don't want to jump to conclusions without evidence. But if you and Sarah could keep an eye on things, maybe help me figure out what's really going on. Matt nods slowly, his concern deepening. Of course. We've got your back, Jake. Just let us know what you need. Thanks, man, I say, clapping him on the shoulder. I really appreciate it. We resume walking, and I let out a slow breath, relieved that the first part of my plan is in motion. If I can get Matt and Sarah to start noticing the cracks, to see the signs I've been seeing, then I can use their reactions to push things in the direction I want. By the time we reach the campsite, the sun has set, and the sky is painted with streaks of orange and pink. The fire is already roaring, casting flickering shadows across the clearing as the others settle into their usual spots. Jessica hands me a bottle of beer, her smile warm and inviting, but I can barely stand to look at her. Everyone ready for another night of fun? Greg asks, his grin wide as he cracks open a beer. Definitely, Amanda chimes in, snuggling up to Greg's side. I glance over at Matt and Sarah, who exchange a quick look before nodding in agreement. They're in, and now it's just a matter of setting the trap. As the night wears on, the conversation flows easily, and the drinks keep coming. I make sure to stay relatively sober, only pretending to sip my beer, while I keep an eye on the others. Matt and Sarah are doing the same, though they're more subtle about it. Hey, Jake, remember that camping trip we did back in college? Greg says suddenly, turning his attention to me. The one where you almost fell into the river? I force a laugh, nodding. Yeah, I remember. You were the one who dared me to get closer to the edge. And you actually did it. Greg says, laughing heartily. I thought for sure you were going to fall in. The group laughs, and I join in, but my mind is elsewhere. I need to find a way to turn the conversation in a direction that will lead to something revealing, something that will give Matt and Sarah the proof they need. So, speaking of college, I say, steering the topic deliberately. Greg, do you remember that time we all went to that party and you ended up disappearing for half the night? Greg smirks, taking a swig of his beer. Oh man, those were the days. Which party are you talking about? You know the one, I say, keeping my tone light but with a hint of something more. The one where Jessica ended up being the only one who could find you. The atmosphere shifts subtly, and I see Jessica stiffen slightly out of the corner of my eye. Greg chuckles, but there's a tightness to it. Oh yeah, I remember, Greg says, glancing at Jessica. She's always had a knack for finding me when I wander off. I can feel the tension rising, and I know I'm pushing the right buttons. Yeah, you two always seem to have some kind of connection. Jessica quickly changes the subject, laughing nervously as she says, "Come on, Jake, that was ages ago. Let's not bore everyone with old stories." The conversation moves on, but the seed has been planted. Matt and Sarah are watching more closely now, their suspicions piqued. It's only a matter of time before they start to see the things I've been seeing. As the night wears on, the group begins to thin out, with Amanda and Tom heading to bed first, leaving just me, Jessica, Greg, Matt, and Sarah by the fire. I can feel the weight of the night pressing down on me, the flickering flames casting eerie shadows on the trees. "I'm going to grab another drink," Jessica says, standing up and stretching. "Anyone else want one?" "I'll join you," Greg says quickly, getting to his feet. They head off together toward the cooler, leaving me with Matt and Sarah. The fire crackles loudly in the silence that follows, and I can see the wheels turning in Matt's mind. "You weren't kidding, were you?" Matt finally says, his voice low. I shake my head, keeping my gaze fixed on the flames. "No, I wasn't." Sarah looks between us, her expression troubled. "What do you want to do, Jake? This doesn't seem like something we can just ignore." "I'm not sure yet," I admit, my voice steady. "But I need to know for certain. I need to catch them in the act." Matt nods, his jaw set. "We'll help you, whatever you need." "Thanks," I say, my mind already spinning with possibilities. "I've got an idea, but it'll take some careful planning." Before I can elaborate, Jessica and Greg return, drinks in hand, and the moment is lost. But the plan is already forming in my mind, and I know what needs to be done. The night drags on, and finally, one by one, we all head to our tents. I lie awake, staring up at the fabric ceiling, my mind racing with thoughts of what's to come. I can hear Jessica's soft breathing beside me, and the memory of what I saw last night burns in my mind. I wait until I'm sure everyone is asleep, the camp silent except for the distant sounds of the forest. Then, I slip out of my sleeping bag and out of the tent, moving silently through the darkness. I make my way to Matt and Sarah's tent, crouching down to whisper through the flap. "Matt, Sarah, are you awake?" There's a rustling sound, and Matt pokes his head out, his expression alert. "What's up?" "I've got an idea," I say, my voice low. "Meet me by the fire pit in 10 minutes. Matt nods, and I slip away, making my way back to the dying embers of the fire. The air is cool, and the stars are bright above, but I barely notice. My focus is on what comes next. A few minutes later, Matt and Sarah join me, their expressions serious. "What's the plan?" Matt asks, keeping his voice low. I take a deep breath, laying out my plan carefully. "We're going to set a trap. If Jessica and Greg are really doing what I think they are, we need to catch them in the act. And we need to make sure they can't deny it." Matt and Sarah listen intently as I explain the details, their faces growing grimmer with each word. By the time I'm done, they're both nodding in agreement. "We're with you," Sarah says, her voice firm. "Let's do this," Matt adds, determination in his eyes. The trap is set, and now, all we have to do is wait. I know it's a risk, that things could go horribly wrong, but I'm past the point of caring. The time for subtlety is over. As we all head back to our tents, I feel a strange calm settle over me. The pieces are falling into place, and soon, I'll have the proof I need. And when that happens, there will be no going back. The game has begun, and this time, I'm the one holding the cards. The camp is eerily quiet, the only sounds the distant calls of night birds and the occasional rustle of wine through the trees. The fire has long since burned down to embers, casting a faint, dying glow over the clearing. I sit by the pit, my eyes fixed on the glowing coals, the plan we set in motion ticking away in my mind like a countdown to disaster. Matt and Sarah have returned to their tent, ready to act when the time comes. I know they're as anxious as I am, but there's no turning back now. This has to end tonight. Jessica is already asleep in our tent, her breathing slow and steady, completely unaware of the storm brewing around her. I look at the tent flap, knowing that once I step through it, everything will change. But there's no room for hesitation. I stand, my legs steady, my resolve firm, and I walk toward the tent, slipping inside as quietly as possible. The air inside is thick with tension. I can feel it pressing down on me, choking me as I move toward the sleeping bag where Jessica lies. I kneel beside her, my heart pounding in my chest, and gently shake her shoulder. "Jessica," I whisper, my voice barely audible over the sound of my own heartbeat. "Wake up." She stirs, blinking sleepily as she turns to look at me. "Jake. What's wrong?" "I need to talk to you," I say, keeping my voice low. "Outside." She frowns, rubbing her eyes. "What time is it? Can't it wait until morning?" "No," I say, my voice firmer now. "It can't." There's something in my tone that makes her sit up, her eyes narrowing with concern. She nods slowly, throwing off the sleeping bag and pulling on a sweater before following me out into the cool night air. We walk in silence toward the fire pit, where Matt and Sarah are already waiting. Jessica looks between them and me, confusion etched on her face. "What's going on?" she asks, crossing her arms over her chest. "We need to talk," I say, my voice calm, but there's an edge to it that I can't hide. "About what's really been going on during this trip." She glances at Matt and Sarah again, then back at me. "What do you mean?" I take a deep breath, steeling myself for what's about to come. "I know, Jessica. I know about you and Greg." Her eyes widen, shock flickering across her face before she quickly masks it with a forced calm. "Jake, what are you talking about?" "There's nothing going on between me and Greg." "Don't lie to me," I say, my voice rising slightly. "I saw you last night, with him. I know what you did." For a moment, there's silence, thick and suffocating. Then, Jessica's eyes narrow, a flash of something dark passing through them. "You were spying on me?" she asks, her voice cold, accusatory. "I was waking up from being drugged," I shoot back, my anger boiling over. "I saw everything, Jessica. Everything." She opens her mouth to respond, but before she can, the sound of rustling leaves behind us draws our attention. We all turn to see Greg stepping out of the shadows, his expression unreadable. "So it's all out in the open now," Greg says, his voice calm, almost resigned. "I suppose it was only a matter of time." Jessica's face pales as she realizes what's happening. "Greg, don't." But he cuts her off, his eyes locking onto mine. "Jake, I'm sorry. It wasn't supposed to go this far." "What do you mean?" I ask, my voice trembling with barely contained rage. Greg sighs, running a hand through his hair. "It was just a stupid, impulsive thing. We didn't mean for it to happen. It was never supposed to get serious." "Serious?" I spit the word out like it's poison. "You think that makes it better?" Matt steps forward, his face a mask of anger and betrayal. "Greg, how could you do this? To Jake, to all of us." Greg looks down, shame flickering across his features. "I don't have an excuse, Matt. I know I've messed up. I don't know. It was a moment of weakness." Jessica looks at me, her eyes pleading. "Jake, please, it wasn't what you think. It was a mistake. A one-time thing." I stare at her, the woman I once loved more than anything, and I feel nothing but disgust. "Don't lie to me. I saw you together, more than once. This wasn't a one-time thing. Tears well up in her eyes, and she looks like she's about to say something else, but I can't stand to hear it. I turn away, needing to put distance between us, but Matt's voice stops me. There's more to this, isn't there? Matt asks, his tone hard. This wasn't just about a stupid fling. What are you two hiding? Greg hesitates, and that hesitation is all I need to know that Matt is right. There's something deeper going on here, something that goes beyond just infidelity. Tell us, I demand, my voice sharp as a knife. Tell us the truth. Greg looks at Jessica, and she shakes her head, silently begging him not to say anything. But Greg seems to have reached his breaking point. He takes a deep breath and looks at me, his expression one of resignation. Jake, it wasn't just about the cheating, he begins, his voice low. Jessica and I, we were planning to leave. Together. My stomach lurches, and I feel the ground shift beneath me. What? Jessica steps forward, her eyes desperate. Jake, please, it's not what it sounds like. We were confused. We thought. Stop lying. I shout, cutting her off. You were going to leave me. Just admit it. Tears spill down her cheeks, and she nods, finally dropping the pretense. Yes, we were. But it was a mistake, Jake. I realized that I love you, that I couldn't go through with it. Her words feel hollow, like they're meant to placate me, to salvage what little she can. But there's nothing left to salvage. You were going to leave me, I say again, my voice flat. You planned all of this. The camping trip, the drugging, everything. Greg looks at me, guilt written all over his face. It wasn't supposed to end like this. We didn't mean to hurt you. Well, you did, I say, my voice cold and empty. And now you're going to pay for it. I take a step back, my mind racing with the possibilities, with the consequences of what I'm about to do. The trap we set earlier tonight is still in place, waiting for the right moment to spring. But now, the plan feels insufficient. I need something more, something that will make them feel the same pain they've inflicted on me. Jake, Matt says, stepping closer, his voice calm but firm. Let's not do anything rash. We can handle this the right way. The right way? I laugh bitterly. What's the right way to handle betrayal, Matt? Tell me, because I'm out of ideas. Let's just walk away, Sarah says softly, her eyes full of compassion. We don't have to make this any worse. But I can't just walk away. Not after everything they've done. I've been pushed too far, and now, I need them to suffer. I have a better idea, I say, my voice hard as steel. How about you two leave? Right now. Get out of here, and don't ever come back. Jessica's eyes widen in fear. Jake, please, we can talk about this. We can work through it. No, I say, shaking my head. There's nothing left to talk about. You've made your choice, and now I'm making mine. Greg steps forward, but Matt blocks his path. Don't, Matt warns. Just go. There's a long, tense moment where no one moves, the night air thick with the weight of everything unsaid. Then, finally, Greg takes Jessica's hand, and they turn and walk away into the darkness, their figures quickly swallowed by the shadows. I stand there, watching them go, feeling a strange sense of finality wash over me. It's over. They're gone. And I'm left with nothing but the wreckage of what was once my life. Matt and Sarah stay with me, silent support in the aftermath of the storm. We sit by the dying fire, none of us speaking, each lost in our own thoughts. Eventually, the fire burns out completely, leaving us in darkness. I feel empty, hollowed out by the events of the past few days. The anger, the hurt, the betrayal, it's all there, but it's numbed by the cold reality of what's happened. Jake, Matt finally says, breaking the silence. What are you going to do now? I stare into the darkness where Jessica and Greg disappeared, and I realize that I don't know. I don't have a plan anymore, no revenge to plot, no one left to punish. I don't know, I admit, my voice barely a whisper. Sarah reaches out and squeezes my hand, her touch warm and comforting. Whatever you decide, we're here for you. I nod, grateful for their presence, but deep down, I know that this is something I have to face alone. As the first light of dawn begins to creep over the horizon, I stand, looking out at the empty campsite. It feels like a fitting end to this chapter of my life, empty, desolate, but with the promise of a new beginning. I think I'm going to leave, I say, surprising even myself with the words. I need to get away from here. Matt and Sarah exchange a look, but they don't argue. They understand. Where will you go? Matt asks. Anywhere but here, I reply, my voice firmer now. I just need to start over. They nod, and without another word, we begin to pack up the camp, the three of us moving in silence. There's a strange sense of peace in the air, as if the weight of the past few days has finally lifted. As we load the last of our gear into the car, I take one last look at the campsite, at the place where everything fell apart. Then, without looking back, I get into the car and drive away, leaving the ruins of my old life behind. The road ahead is uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, I feel like I can breathe again. The anger and hatred that have consumed me are still there, but they're starting to fade, replaced by something else, a sense of freedom, of possibility. I don't know what the future holds, but I know that I'll never forget what happened here. The scars will remain, but they'll be a reminder of what I've survived, of the strength I didn't know I had. And as I drive away, the sun rising higher in the sky, I feel a strange sense of hope, like maybe, just maybe, there's a chance for something better on the horizon.